Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial, and in this one for this week we are going to be talking about the jungler who is rising up in popularity and, well, I guess notoriety for laners, and that's Rek'Sai. When a champion has good win rates on 3 different runes and 3 different viable rune paths, you know they're probably pretty strong overall. The very slight buffs and quality of life changes that Rek'Sai got in the recent patch, 2 of the most important are on your screen now, really gave her a burst of life and put her over the edge into viability, with a lot of popular streamers and YouTubers and high elo players commenting about how they think she is actually broken. So what I'm going to do is give you an overview of the item paths, the best rune pages, as well as gameplay mechanics, game styles, and an in-depth example about how you can translate this into your games and get those free wins. And this video is brought to you by Pro Guides. Now, a lot of people in my Discord, especially on Twitter, in the comments, always ask how they can beat the losing streaks. Maybe I can coach them 1v1. Now, unfortunately, that isn't possible. And so I do send them to Pro Guides, where you can have your free sign up for some of the best videos and in-depth guides to improve at League. They have courses with pro players, champion tier lists, matchup stat tools, and a 24/7 challenger coach who you can talk to anytime. So if you want to get better at League and want everything in one place, use the link in the description to head to Pro Guides. And now on your screen, you should see some examples of the rune pages and a play that goes with it that Rek'Sai players are currently using. Now the Conqueror rune is of course giving you that heal, giving you that true damage, which synergizes with Rek'Sai's E, which already gives true damage at max fury and can really be deceiving in terms of the damage it outputs at max Conqueror stacks. Well, even without Conqueror, the E damage is quite insane. The Hail of Blades and Electrocute options are still good. Electrocute has a better win rate than Hail of Blade does, even if its usage rate is lower. However, none of these runes will get in the way of you achieving your early game goals, and of course with Rek'Sai, remember, we're not trying to go to the 45-minute mark, we're trying to build damage, we're trying to have a lot of pressure, and you want to win in that mid game for sure. Now, in terms of items that are going with these, the runes don't really interfere much with the builds. You will see commonly Stalker Warriors, Cleaver, Sterix Gauge, Mercury Treads, because Rek'Sai can get kited out quite easily when you don't have the angle of attack for a knockup, you don't have flash for your knockup, or you don't have your ultimate up. Naturally then, people are also finishing off with GA, give you extra survivability in addition to revival in crucial team fights. Now, a lot of games are ending way before people get 6 items, but you'll see some options for tankier alternatives. Maybe if you're going full damage, you can go for that Maul of Mortius against AP or poke heavy threats. But you do also have the option of going a bit more tanky after the Black Cleaver if that's something you feel you need. However, with the Conqueror rune and the full damage bull path, if you are playing the early and mid game correctly, you're going to be very difficult to deal with in a 1v1 skirmish, and even if you are playing teamfights correctly, the same thing holds. Now let's just give a quick example of what we mean by the ultimate being undodgeable, except for, massive sort of teleportations away from Rek'Sai. And in this example, you see the Corki is 3 levels down, gets hit by the Prey Seeker after the Rek'Sai E over the back of the Baron Pit, and even though he tries to use his jump to escape the radius, it is no longer enough, and the Rek'Sai comes flying through for that kill. So the added ability of having more fury generated by that Q, and having that added security knowing your ultimate's going to actually be useful, and people aren't going to be able to simply dash out of the way when you emerge from the ground, these things really add to Rek'Sai's power spike in addition to synergy with a new very strong rune in Conqueror. So now we're going to break down 3 specific examples of using this Rek'Sai package to really obliterate any game that you're in. Now I know people are thinking, hey, we don't have vertical jungling in my elo, I don't need to know how to do it. Well, it's very imperative that you do actually understand it. However, for practical purposes, I will also show an example of an early game that uses more prototypical early clears, as well as good camp sequencing. And then finally, we will look at an example around that late early mid-game phase, how you can use Rek'Sai's supreme Tremor Sense, counter jungling and counter ganking in order to really break open a game and get that enemy to surrender. So we're not so much concerned about the enemy jungler in this video. I'm just gonna have Lee Sin show up on the mini screen just for a little bit so you have an idea of his pathing and why Rek'Sai does what she does. But the goal here is, of course, and you will see this is a transcending clear among all Rek'Sais at this stage, you go from the red to your Krugs to your Raptors. Now, when you come out of burrow, remember your W, as you go underneath targets, will knock them up as you emerge from the ground. If you can get an auto attack off before you trigger your Qs, that gives you some added fury generation as well as DPS. I'll show an example of this a little bit later, as this Rek'Sai doesn't often use it. However, this doesn't impact your clear and your damage too much because you should be near full HP by the time you head to that scuttle due to the regeneration you have when you are burrowed, and the W knockup on scuttle gives you that excellent crab control because, remember, CC on the crab removes its resistances, and then from there, if you are vertical jungling, because you see the enemy jungle on the top side, you pretty much have an understanding that this is how the game is going to be. Rek'Sai is unique in that, like Kayn, she can scale walls from a very unique angle at a very early level. Level 3 already, she is burrowing through the bottom lane wall, and unfortunately the Prey Seeker Q misses, which would have been nice to secure that Draven kill a little sooner. She does go on the Soraka, and even though no kills are gained for the Rek'Sai or assists, that lane pressure, the Summoner's Burned, really will help her bot lane. Now remember, in this meta, you want to be ganking that bot lane. Bot lane will carry a lot of games if you can just hang around there. If you have a vertical jungling opportunity around this side because you are on the blue side of the map, please use it. In the next example, we will look at how you can help your bot lane or help the map when you're on the red side of the map. However, here, obviously everything sets us up nicely to camp on that bot lane. So having seen the Lee Sin top lane, knowing that she could steal that blue, Rek'Sai can go back into Lee Sin's jungle and clear the rest of those camps, and then go back to the bot lane knowing flashes are down. Now, remember, a bit of patience and using unique angle of attacks will make ganks that much more successful. If you're simply going to use your E directly in front of you, well, it's very easy for the enemy to walk away, silence you, and disengage. However, using the E like the Rek'Sai does here through the wall, it's a little slower, but Soraka walks straight into it and she gets knocked up and killed. She can then move on to the Draven, knock him up, and as you see what I mean by that E bite, well, full fury, true damage, dead Draven. Now a couple more Rek'Sai notes that you can use to make your game more efficient than you could with other champions. As you leave bases and the direction you're heading, you can set tunnels so that the next time you return to base, well, it's much faster to get back out into the field. Not quite the same as the old Rek'Sai ultimate, and we'll talk a little bit more about how these tunnels work in your farming in the next example. However, when you go back to that bottom lane, knowing there are no sums, you've already been there twice, you have flash up, now you can finally go in and fully commit, and the Soraka really cannot do anything about it. And again, look at the bite damage you have on that E-bite, and you can see why it would synergize nicely with those 5 stacks of Conqueror. Now from here, you see the Lee Sin show up. He thinks, well, Rek'Sai was just bottom lane, probably going back to base to buy. He's not really thinking too much about it, and again, these are all very high MMR games. Rek'Sai has a unique ability to detect enemies even when she isn't burrowed. While Rek'Sai is doing the Krugs, she just used a tunnel to get over the wall. If your tunnel is destroyed prior to the long period of time before it self-destructs, you know someone has stepped on it and someone is there. In addition, if you are simply in burrowed form, the recent quality of life changes did make the tremor sense a bit more brighter on screen, and so Rek'Sai has a good inclination that Lee Sin is trying to steal that red buff, and he hasn't considered that maybe Rek'Sai has that excellent sustain, just reached level 6, and is going to annihilate him. She burrows over, knocks him up. Lee Sin thinks he's getting away with the plant. However, thank you very much Riot for my nice new ultimate range, and Lee Sin goes down. She can then use the tunnel to get back up to her red buff. However, Rek'Sai is not invincible, even if she is extremely strong. Don't go and solo that dragon if you don't have vision, if your E is on cooldown, if you can't go back into the tunnel, if you don't have flash, because basically you are just a sitting duck to ranged champions that can kite you out when you have no gap closers available or off cooldown. So that pretty much summarizes a typical very strong Rek'Sai early game, and we will revisit this game shortly to see how this Rek'Sai can then translate that early game into a mid-game win. However, let's shift to what happens if you don't vertical jungle and you are on the red side of the map, and thus, the vertical jungling would not be so great for you, especially in a strong bot lane meta. So in this case, the Rek'Sai starts the red again, but as you'll notice, much better clearing because she hits that Prey Seeker onto the Krugs and then auto attacks after unburrowing before using the Q for the added rage charge as well as the added DPS. Go down, take that crab, get level 3, but now because she is not so much interested in vertical jungling and the enemy jungler hasn't shown to indicate that he's going for the bottom side crab, that gives Rek'Sai a bit more flexibility in terms of her pathing. Simply put, she can go straight to the mid lane using a great angle of attack. If the Ahri had prepared that charm a bit sooner, it would have been a guaranteed kill, but nonetheless, that's an Azir Summoner burn, both the flash and the cleanse used in this instance. This gives Rek'Sai really nice bottom side scuttle control, and if you can get both scuttles as a jungler in this early game, that's very good. Junglers are looking to gank heavy and often early if they know what they're doing, and having that vision in the river as well as denying golden experience to the enemy jungler is always an ideal scenario. Now the Rek'Sai here has that river control. The Gragas helps make sure that the enemy Pyke doesn't think about having any ideas of stealing that, and then she can full clear her bottom side jungle. Now I'm going to pinpoint as she does it, this tunnel she leaves as she goes to the wolves. That's going to be useful for map scaling and time sequencing in a few minutes. Before going back, Rek'Sai does of course finish the Raptors, which indicates a full clear, and that means once going back, you can head back to your Krogs, which will be up again, and then you can look to gank on the mid lane. Now because Azir has no summoners and Ahri has her ignite still up, that pretty much guarantees you that kill on the mid lane before falling back into the topside river to grab the first RNG scuttle. You have lane priority. The enemy jungler does not have a mid laner up to help. He has to give way to the Rek'Sai. Now Rek'Sai knows the enemy jungler started on that red side is going to be looking for some kind of bot lane play very soon when they get those ultimate spikes, and so after going back from taking that scuttle and getting the mid lane kill, can use a tunnel over the wall into the wolves and use that tunnel again. So that's again map scaling in advance. This gives her time to do the grump, which gives her that level 6 power spike, which is crucial in the fight that breaks out over this fire dragon. And the winners of these early skirmishes, the summoners burn, the kills gained, the objectives netted, all can dictate who actually wins a game in Season 9 if you know how to really enhance that snowball. The Rek'Sai accidentally, or unless intentionally to charge up some rage, hits the dragon, but then can ult back into the fight, kill the Azir, hits a burrowed Prey Seeker onto the Ezreal, which as you can see, gives her some fury, which then adds to a nice full true damage bite, but then gives the kill off to the Ahri because as we said, junglers enable laners, you don't want to have all 10 of the kills and then complain your lanes have no gold. So in this case you saw good early clear, scuttle control, 2 powerful ganks in the mid lane, intelligent camp sequencing, tunnel setup, and therefore giving an experience lead that allows you to win a fight with both of the most notable buffs, the R range and the Q fury build up, giving you that team fight to win. And now let's transition back to our first Rek'Sai example, where she got caught out a bit, had a few misplays. The game is kind of neutral at this stage. Lee Sin has done a good job counteracting her pressure, also getting himself a few kills here and there. And now basically at level 9, she's hovering around the top side, the vertical jungling is over, they've regained control of their own jungles, and after an attempted gank on the top lane Kassadin, very difficult gank to have, she goes down to the mid lane, anticipating that Lee Sin was looking to maybe counter gank that top lane and might now rotate to the mid. They know there are no wards, and using that Tremor Sense gives you a very unique counter-ganking tool, because if the enemy jungler has no idea you're there, you can time your attacks, ping it out for your team, and grab a nice kill. Or in this case, just solo kill him, get that bite off after your ultimate, and then turn to help your laner. She's able to knock up and kill the enemy Cassiopeia, and from there they can actually turn and do the Fire Dragon after, sort of almost throwing it away earlier in the game. And this is where Rek'Sai breaks open games. When you have the jungle pressure and you've won the sort of push and pull, you've gotten a counter gank, you've got some kills, you got an objective, go and set up shop in their jungle. Rek'Sai is not a champion you want to relax and fall back into your own jungle with. You want to absolutely dominate the enemy with your XP and gold advantage, because the damage you can output with the builds with maxing E second really gives you a huge 1v1 advantage. She does just that, and as the Lee Sin comes to try and collect his blue buff, well, there the support is, there Rek'Sai is, and down he goes. This is the kind of pressure you want to continue exerting. And pretty much this determined the rest of the game, because from here, Rek'Sai can go back to base, go to the top side, take more towers, focus the Herald, and there's nothing the enemy can do because of Rek'Sai's in and out mobility with the tunnels, the knock-up when she has flash available. If the enemy at one point focuses on someone else and she gets a flank off, well, they're most likely going to die, and they're not going to be able to flash or dash away from her ultimate. All of these examples were using the Conqueror rune page, so you can see the damage and ability you have when you know how to have a good early and mid game, and enemy teams are very likely to just fold an FF if you don't close the game out yourself. Hopefully some of these tips and insights into how Rek'Sai can be played to dominate the current meta will help you in your own games. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and comment if you did enjoy and learn something. Please consider joining us on YouTube to become an official member. Subscribe for more League of Legends and jungle videos coming very soon, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.